Hello everyone, Mark Sham here, founder and CEO of Suits and Sneakers. And as always, I'm back with another version of the Small Business Showcase, but it's kind of with a twist today because it's also about women who inspire me. If you've been watching this series for the last while, you know I've kind of been doing these as separate. And it really dawned on me today that this is actually one and the same. So I'm really excited, as always, to introduce you to someone who I just love chatting to. So without further ado, hello Andy Golding, welcome to the show.
Hello Mark Sham, thank you for having me.
So Ans, let me just get my bearings here. Ans, I always ask this question. For those out there of the people who don't know you, who the hell are you and what is the value that you add to this world?
I am Andy Golding, human being, and a human being with an unbridled passion for the fact that work shouldn't suck, and a fundamental belief that it's the headspace and the heart space of human beings that is the most untapped natural asset on the planet.
So it's fascinating. This is the kind of work that really resonates with me, which is why I wanted to have you here. And I was telling you a little off air that I often play this thought experiment out when I meet new people, where I start asking them what it is that they do. And then I ask them kind of out of nowhere if they love what they do. And there is either this hesitation or a flat out no. And it's crazy to me how many people are not enjoying the work that they're doing. What on earth is going on, Ant?
It's not a small question.
Sure.
I think there's so many contributing factors to that. For a lot of people, it becomes a case of, I need a job, I've got to take what's available to me, but in that job, my passion's not really ignited, I'm not really invited to contribute, to do my best thinking. I kind of feel like my job is one of the things that I do in my life, so it's not actually one cohesive thing. I think a lot of people, we kind of get forced into these generic degrees and then we got to take these jobs, and it's generally a necessity thing for a lot of people. A lot of people also haven't had the opportunity to explore for themselves, what do I actually want to be doing? If the slate was blank, if we wiped the slate clean, what are the things that would actually ignite me, excite me, and get me to jump out of bed every morning?
Yeah, and again, you and I were talking off air about this idea, because I think a lot of it comes from the generations that we've passed through. I think about our grandparents, that they came through a crazy time filled with war and scarcity. So I get where the original mentality came from, that you take a job that's good, that's safe, because there wasn't a lot out there. But that is not the world that we live in at present. But that is the generation that we've kind of grown up with, because our grandparents taught our parents who taught us. And so you can see that that's being passed down, and so many people are looking at a job as just a form of payment, when in actual fact there are so many other factors to work that either make a job rewarding or not.
So many, and I don't know, I believe that life is way too short to resent the reason that you have to get out of bed every morning. I think believe what you will, whether there's reincarnation or not, if we actually only get to do this version of it once, we might as well have a hell of a joy doing it. We might as well have a whole lot of fun doing it. And it's exactly like you say, the generational thing is important, because our grandparents, they had this survive at all costs mindset because they had to. That was passed on to our parents. But our generation is looking for so much more from work. We're looking for really being a part of something. We're looking to contribute to something that's bigger than ourselves, leave something better than it was when we got there. There was a brilliant podcast that I was listening to the other day called The Human Enterprise, and this Dr. Anna Tavis said, pay is just a portion of the reward that people get from their work. And I think that just sums it up so brilliantly. They were talking about the future of human capital, and if pay is just a portion of the reward, we know the research shows that you can throw money at people, but past a point, past a certain threshold, money's not a motivator anymore. It's that connection, that excitement, that being switched on about everything that you're doing.
So let's go back a step, specifically with you. How do you get into this line of work in the first place? How is it that Andy Golding, that's sitting in front of me now, is involved in this employee experience consultation process and tell us a little bit more about Still Human.
So how Andy Golding becomes employee experience specialist and co-founder of Still Human is a funny story, and it starts with the fact that my first job sucked. My boss was awful, dictatorial. It was actually a job I took straight out of matric to pay for my matric vac. And I couldn't reconcile that I'd been told my whole life that I had to work really hard at school, get good grades, get into varsity, get a degree, get a good job, but now I must hate getting up and going to work every morning. That doesn't make any sense. And that planted a really big seed for me. And cut a long story short, I then studied brand building and management, and I never wanted to work in advertising, and I couldn't understand why companies spend so much money forcing a message and a persona out into the world, where if they invested even a fraction of that internally, that message would permeate organically from within the business. And so that was what really got me fascinated around the company culture and employee experience space. I then started my first business in the space, and shortly after starting was introduced to Brad Shawkend, my now business partner and co-author. And Brad and I we realized early on that we actually really share this passion for the fact that work shouldn't suck. And that's where Still Human comes from. It's Still Human's a relevance advisory, and we help companies remain relevant in a world gone digital crazy through switching on and igniting the human assets in that business.
And this is one of the many reasons why I wanted to have you here, because this message and this thinking resonates with me so deeply. I equally went through this process. I think there's a bunch of things to it, like how do you know what you want to do when you're 18 years old? That's a thing on its own. But then even beyond, then the messaging and the advice that we get as young people to move into a certain career. And then I just find it amazing that, especially with COVID hitting the way it's hit right now and the impact that it's had on work, you could actually see pre and post COVID which companies were really doing the work on this, on creating this powerful employee experience, as you talk about, and which ones didn't. And it's bizarre to me that we don't focus more time, attention, money, resources at this, because to your point, if you could get this engine fired up internally, it has so many positive knock-on effects. So what is going on? Tell me a little bit more about, if you can just sum up for me, like how would you define employee experience, and just kind of give me a little bit of your headspace around that.
I'll just open it up. So employee experience, how we define it, is it's the sum of everything in the work environment that creates how employees are made to feel, and whether they're being switched on and grown or switched off and depleted. And the sum of everything is massive, because it literally is everything in the work environment, because experience is created by moments. An experience is just a collection of hundreds of moments, millions of moments even. So in every single moment, people are either being switched on or they're being switched off. They're either being grown or they're being depleted. And when we start to talk about designing experience, creating what we call companies behaving awesomely, places to which the best people want to come, we have to start to think in moments. Think about the small moments of experience that we're creating for our employees. And it's easy to kind of dismiss this as the soft stuff that we'll get to later, but there's a very hard business case for why we need to be looking at this and getting it right. Not only is it the fact that your payroll, what you're paying your human beings, is one of the biggest line items that a company comes face to face with every month, every year, but the Deloitte numbers, Deloitte Global Human Capital Trends from 2019 tell us that the companies that get the employee experience the most right have double the innovation, double the customer satisfaction, and 25% higher profits. Because it speaks to exactly what you said. It's a butterfly effect thing. It's a small, tiny change. We talk about wasabi changes. So when you eat sushi, you only really need a small amount of wasabi to really change the taste of your dish. It's the same thing when it comes to changing, designing, and strategizing around employee experience. It's often not these big, sweeping things that companies tend to think they are. It's the little things. It's those tiny moments of experience that will help you get to double the innovation, double the customer satisfaction, 25% higher profits.
So I would love to just pick your brain, and I know this is a huge topic to try cover in a short space of time, but what would the advice that you give to companies alike in South Africa right now? Some of the tips that can change that experience in the workplace?
The first thing that comes to mind here is done is better than perfect. I think a lot of companies spend a lot of time talking about the fact that we need to do employee experience, we need to get the stuff right, we need to focus on it, but they don't actually do anything. James Clear, the guy who wrote Atomic Habits, has a brilliant comparison that he does where he talks about motion versus action. Motion, talking to a personal trainer, researching the book idea that you have. Action, doing 10 squats, writing 1 sentence. And a lot of companies are in motion around this. Very few are taking action. And it's fine if the first few action steps that you take aren't maybe the best ones, or they don't end up being the direction you want to go in down the line. But for your people to see that you care, to see you in action, the resultant discretionary effort that will unlock for people, the excitement that creates in the business is massive. You can't really put a tally on what that energy will create.
Yeah, and you were saying to me off air, like some stuff that really resonated with me. Like, I love that it's the devil's in the detail. It's how leadership are speaking to people. It's all these little moments that people can pick, and you gave me such great examples. I would love for you just to share some of those, because they really did hit a spot for me.
Yeah, so if we come back to this idea of employee experience being the sum of everything that creates whether people are being switched on and grown or switched off and depleted, and the fact that experience it's made up of moments, and in every single moment people are either being switched on and grown or they're being switched off and depleted. So as a leader, as an employer, as an employee, in every single moment, the interactions that you're having with people, what experience is it creating for them? Are you switching somebody on, or are you switching them off? Are you growing them, or are you depleting them? And especially in times like this, when the world is kind of in a topsy-turvy state, it's now more important than ever to be thinking in moments. So in this moment, when Mark sends me an email and I'm too busy to respond, and like, I'll get to it later, what's the experience that I'm creating for you? Or you send me a message and I shoot off a short, brisk reply. What's the experience that I'm creating for you? Because, yes, businesses have loads of people in them, but that's exactly it. They're people. We're all human beings, and we are all, we crave, we create, and we respond to these human experiences and these human moments.
And so when you think about it like that, it's just such a no-brainer to spend more time, effort, and money on these instances, which really creates this mad bonfire bonding effect on people, staff, sales, all these things. So, you and I were talking, and I was like, it's actually so unfair to have you on for such a short space of time, because this topic is so broad. But what I would love is, I'd love to give you kind of space to your close-up, and I would love for you to just kind of share a message that you want to leave with your audience, and then also just a way for people to contact you.
Cool, thank you. So what I'll share is what was the catalyst for me that got me into this space and focusing and working on employee experience. Before I actually started a business in this space, I was curious about company culture, and I was blogging about it. And I was writing an article, can't remember what I was writing about, but I typed into Google, just into a Google search bar, I typed, "My job makes me." And before I got any further, Google tries to auto-complete your sentences, and it gives you those search prompts. And the search prompts that came after "My job makes me" made me stop, caught me dead in my tracks. I think my heart skipped a few beats in that process. And I just thought, there's got to be a better way. And so I would invite you're probably watching this in some sort of browser, go Google "My job makes me," have a look at what those search prompts are, those auto-completes that Google wants to give you, and think for a second, the people that you lead or work with on a day-to-day basis, what might they be saying? What might they be saying about the experience that they're having at work? So yeah, that was really the kick in the pants for me that sent me down this path. In terms of getting in touch with us, it's stillhuman.co.za, and you're welcome to drop me a mail at andy@stillhuman.co.za.
Anz, I really want to just say thank you so much for coming through, and I have to level with you. I love the work that you do, both as a female, because I think one of the things that resonates with me deeply is people who just go after stuff. And you are one of those people. And I think in South Africa, we are often short of those people, especially females who really break the traditional conditioning and mold that we have. And I've watched you over the years become a better version of yourself every year based on the last year. You really go after what you want. You build on your convictions, which really resonates with me. So first as a female, but also as a business owner, I just think that the work that you and Brad are doing is just absolutely excellent. And I really want to encourage you to just keep going in the line that you're doing, but also I would love to have you back here. This is just kind of the nature of this interview, that we do these as short ones. It's a little bit unfair to you, but I'd love to have you guys back to really expand on this concept of still human in the workplace, because as we can clearly see, like, you spend the best time of your life at work. So if we can't get this right from a personal perspective, from a work perspective, it's a mess. And I would love to have you back, but until then, I just want to say thank you so much for being here, for doing the work that you do, and for just being that like guiding, shining light and example. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome.